welcome back to a new season of Stigmas and Open Wounds. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Eric.
Woo, we made it. Season 4. Can you believe it?
I was trying to figure out as you were talking, is it season 3 or season 4?
Believe it or not, I've actually had that in the last couple of weeks. I was like, wait, what season are we on? Season 4 or season 5? Yes, I had the same thing except wrong season. I thought we were a little bit further than you thought. But either way, we are a new season, and it is season 4. So, yeah, it's kind of exciting. We did it.
We made it.
We made it.
We made it. We made it, and I think we used the reference at the end of like the last episodes that we had just inked the deal for renewal for the 4 seasons.
Yeah, you're we signed it, and
we're in the negotiation for a multi-year contract, so you might see this podcast go on for up to 7 years now.
Yeah,
so, woohoo!
Yeah, you guys are officially going to be sick of us.
If you're not already.
If you're not, yeah. But if you are, just turn us off. No, seriously, don't turn us off. So I don't know if you've listened to the live show yet. If you haven't, well, I was about to say, stop it, go turn it on. No, if you haven't, turn it on because it's a great show. Not just our section, everybody's section. They did a really great job. So seriously, give it a listen. I didn't do a lot of editing to it. I just kind of edited out some sections. Like there was a 15-minute break. I edited that out because nobody wants to listen to kind of dead air music for 15 minutes. But I kind of left it as full on as, you could, so you could get the experience. But, you guys should really give it a listen, kind of know what it's like to be there. Listen to some of the people in the Appleton podcast co-op because there's some really good people in there. But we're going to do kind of a lengthened version of what we did for that show because we only got to get a little bit in, but we're going to go in a little bit further. Basically what we did was we talked about where we started, what we learned and all that stuff, and a little bit of where we're going and all that.
And I don't think we need to focus nearly as heavily on where we started and where we went to, because I feel like the people listening to this podcast have probably listened to this podcast before.
Right.
Unless we just picked up a whole swarm of new listeners from our live show.
Which would be great. I'm totally cool with that. I mean, I have seen a few people popping up on the Facebook saying, hey, you got a few more views, which,
good.
Who knows? I mean, David did a really good job of posting with the APC saying like, hey, here's a feature of this that's going to be shown. Honestly, David did a very good job with the whole show, with hosting it and just with doing all the posting for that. So I got to give David a lot of props.
And we also did get a lead for a possible interview on the podcast. Which
we're going to meet with her today, a sound healer. So we'll see if anything comes from that. I'm just excited because I want to learn about sound healing.
Exactly. A new little world I can engross myself in.
Yes. I mean, when I heard that we get to meet with a sound healer, I'm just like, Eric's like, what's a sound healer? I'm like, are you kidding? I've told you about this before. This is a world that I'm kind of learning a little bit about. I have some, I don't know if tuning forks is the right word because I think that's more of musical world, but I've got some like tuning things for each chakra, but I don't really know the proper way to use them yet. So maybe she could teach me.
my friend, I told him about this and he's like,
oh, really?
What's a sound healer? And I'm like, it is a person that heals people using sound.
And was he just baffled? Like, what? Well, and I'm picturing she's probably got the bowls and everything like that. Have you seen these like bowls that they tune to each frequency of the body? I mean, and this is stuff that we've been really starting to get into with the chakra. And we were listening to something just the other night that apparently November's frequencies, I think it's either 417 or 117, and you're supposed to listen to it at just a very low hum for the evening, and it's supposed to just help you. And just all these different things of frequencies are just very interesting. Like, oh, this frequency is the frequency of love, and if I can learn anything just a little bit more, I'm a sponge for any of this kind of stuff. So,
yeah. And we'll see how that goes. I'm really excited to see if we take, like what we can learn from this. So, and hopefully all the listeners will learn the same thing, which is kind of the point of a podcast. So I really hope that does happen.
Right.
So, well, let's kick into the episode. So,
yeah,
where I think, if I can drive this a little bit, where I think we should start is that, so everybody kind of knows that we started this on your quest of dealing with your bipolar. For a little synopsis, if anybody is like a late joiner into the podcast, so they didn't hear previous episodes, we had discussed in like at the end of probably the first, second season time frame about how this is really, everything we did really made you face your fears, your really learn
issues,
about all of your neurodivergent tendencies. We even discovered that I probably have a neurodivergent tendency, probably a pretty strong one, actually.
Yeah.
And
honestly, I think we're both quite strongly ADHD. I would say we just had no idea.
I do too, but at the same time, I also think I see a lot of other people, and I feel like my ADHD is not even in the ballpark range of the way they are. So I don't feel like I might not have it as bad as some do. Right. So
it's all about learning how to use it.
But so then flash forward, beginning of season 3, we kind of incorporated all of these like life things into it. So it's less just being about neurodivergence, but more about being how to live your life as a neurodivergent. And one angle of that, because not to say that the way we live our life is the right way to live your life, but
it's just one way to live your life.
Yeah, but I can attest that the way we live our life makes me very happy.
Yeah,
so
honestly,
it might work for somebody else.
It's the right way for us. It's quite frankly the perfect way for us right now, I would say.
And hopefully by us sharing that with everybody, they can find their path to that right way of living their life. So I guess this is our first full season with the journals and all these added features of the podcast. How do you think that has gone? Has that made the podcast more enjoyable for you? Has it made it more miserable? Has it made it more?
I think it's made it more enjoyable because I think it's kind of like if I've got something on my mind, you can just kind of say it. It's like, if there's a bad week, kind of, we can just get it out in the journal.
Right.
It's like, boy, this week was really rough to deal with the way that the weather's been. Let's get it out in the journal. It's not enough for a full episode, maybe, but let's get it out in the journal. Tell people that, and I'm sure not everybody listens to the journals because they're just little blips, and we do mention, we do the journals high because it's just, that is another facet of our life it's kind of fun. And whether or not you can tell, because some journals were a little bit more high, some were a little bit less high. So whether you can tell we are is, I honestly, I think some you can tell a little bit more, but I think it's one of those things where we can kind of hop on and I could be like, this was a rough week for me, so this is how I dealt with it. But rather than doing a full-on episode about it, because sometimes there's not enough to do a full episode.
Right, exactly. And I think that has been the true power of the journal is that it gives you that outlier to put something out there that I feel like should be put out there, but it's just not a big enough thing to do a 45-minute episode about. So, and it also allows us to just do fun things too.
Exactly.
Like looking at the Monster Squad and the Goonies. It's just a fun thing to do. And how would you really fit that into a podcast other than with this journal segment? And again,
that's another facet of our life. You can kind of see other bits inside of us. You get to know us. We always tell people, if you really want to know us, listen to this podcast. You really get to know the ins and outs of us. And I think that's what's really fun about this season. You even get to know us on an even deeper level. Like if you listen to every single episode, yeah, you can miss an episode here and there, but if you really listen to every episode, you really get to know us, because you get to know how we feel about the Monster Squad, the Goonies, the fall and the Halloween. You get to know how we feel about holidays, how we feel about seasons, just everything. You get to know the ins and outs of us so much. And I think that's really fun. And we get to tell about all of our different adventures. Like, you get to know about all of our different hiking adventures, which is so much a part of us. Like, we talk a lot about our hiking now. And I think that is so cool. Like, all of a sudden we're like, yep, we did this hike. And I think that's really fun that you get to follow our different adventures that we go on, whether it's hiking or to South America or Europe or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really cool that listeners really get to follow not only our mental health adventures, but just our life adventures as well. Because to follow a host and to kind of get to know a host, you also get to know, like, it's really nice to get to know a host and to know their kind of.
I feel like if you want to truly learn something from anybody, and in fact, we did a kind of a review on a book that kind of talked about this, like, and for anybody that was the NLP book, I can't remember. It's by Neil Shaw. I can't remember the exact title of the book. Yeah, I can't
either.
But in that book, they talked about how like, if you want to become Eric Clapton at playing guitar,
you follow his life.
Right. Eric Clapton can't just sit you down and tell you how to be a guitarist. You have to become Eric Clapton.
Right.
That sounds morbid or something like that, but
but the essentials do as Eric Clapton does.
You do his routine, you do his you have to get in his mindset, and only then can you be as good as Eric Clapton is at the guitar.
And not saying that anybody wants to be us necessarily, but if you're trying to change different facets of your life, maybe there's one thing that you cannot figure out. Well, maybe you're like, that's the thing.
Right. It's all about nuggets, where you find a nugget here of something that resonates with you, and you take all those nuggets and you put them together and build your life the way you want it to be. Because I mean, I always tell everybody that I love my life, but I'm pretty sure most people wouldn't want my life. Right. And that's because it's my individual life.
Right, exactly. I mean, and there's a podcast that we listen to, Mind Your Business, and there's bits of what they do that we just really, that we're kind of like, and we just really like them as a couple, as people. And I think really I don't want to say we emulate what they do, but they kind of talk about their life, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would totally want to meet them. And I think, I'm not saying like I want, people to be like, oh, I want to meet them or whatever, but I think it's really cool for us to be able to be like, this is what we do and whatever, so that, we can let you know, like, hey, maybe you want to do this. Maybe you're like, I don't even want to touch that at all.
Right. And a big part, because I kind of suggested this whole expansion at one point in time. And at
first, I think I was like, I don't know.
You were hesitant because you didn't want the extra editing. But once we got into it, I think.
Well, and I think I was also like, I don't know if people really want to hear that even.
But the reason I came to that belief is because the podcasters that I truly resonate with, like you said, the Mind Your Business podcast is one of the top ones, but there's numerous other ones out there. And what I have found is the reason I connect with certain podcasts very, very deeply is not because of anything to do with the content they're talking about. It's because of the people that are talking.
Oh, absolutely.
If I can resonate with one of the people that's talking, I connect more with the podcast.
Right.
So the idea behind this expansion was that in my head, and you can tell me if you agree with this, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to lay out exactly who we were so that if somebody picks up this podcast and starts listening, they can quickly make that decision if you're the right person for them.
Right. And I have in this season, I've been having troubles editing it because last season we have just some really, really fun clips, and they're going to come out season 4. I promise you. Hopefully earlier. I think we're going to go to Ishpeming this week. I'm thinking my big edit's going to come this week. I don't know how soon they're going to come out, but hopefully sooner than later. We did some really fun things with our friends, Katie and Michelle. They took us out when we were high a couple times, and we had some really, really fun adventures. They took us out, and we did a scavenger hunt.
Grocery store scavenger hunt, which was interesting.
And that's going to come out. I don't know if it's going to come out in the week of episode 1. I don't think it's going to come out quite that soon, but it's going to come out very soon. And yes, I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone, and that's going to come out this season very soon. So yes, I'm going to make that a feature of season 4. I think that's definitely going to be a season 4 thing, like our kind of new season 4. So season 3 was our journal. Season 4 is going to be our friends going crazy. I don't remember what we called it. Neanderthal side quests. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think season 4 is going to be our special Neanderthal side quest. That's going to be our really fun. Because that was our really fun.
And we may expand into other things too, because I want to get back into the Navy stories, because I do think that people find Navy stories very interesting. Right. As well as I think that, you said earlier that if you listen to this podcast, you learn us inside and out, kind of, which I do agree with you on a personal side. But a big part of my life is business. Right.
Absolutely. And we were going to do some business.
And we were going to do like a business section where I could just go out down my rabbit holes of business mindset stuff, which is what I feel like is the secret. Every business owner has a different secret sauce to what makes you a successful business owner. And I find that I put mine at mindset. Some people will say I'm a marketing guy. Some people will say I'm a systems guy. I'm a efficiency guy or whatever.
Yeah, and you're just kind of like, look, I think it's all about the mindset that you put into it.
It's all about getting yourself to think right, because like it's all about throwing out everything that you're taught in society and readjusting yourself to, because
that's really about what life is in general.
We're right. And maybe we'll do an episode about that at some point in time, because that's one of the realizations I've come to is that, so it started out with, I had to break down all these walls, and I had to break down these walls and figure out how to solve problems and stuff within my business. And I don't know where the tipping point was, but at a certain point in time, so my mindset turned to that there was no problem I couldn't solve. So I had to just figure, and that's every entrepreneur. You become an entrepreneur, this is going to inevitably happen because it's just something you have to do. But then I kind of applied that to my personal life.
Right.
And instead of having like what people told me was right and wrong is what I believed, I started making the decision on my own. Yes. And that has just made my life way more interesting and way more open, in a way bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Because now I can see things that I've never seen before, because I was just shut off to them because I had some sort of internal block that just didn't allow me to see them. And there's probably still a lot of things I block, but
it's a complete process that we all have to work on. I mean,
so maybe we'll talk about, because maybe we'll do that episode I can write that episode up when we're in Ishpeming.
That's a good idea.
And we can do that. So, but I think that's a huge thing, and I'd like to bring some of the business stuff into, I mean, again, doesn't really fit into the realm of this podcast, but you know what? It's us, so it does.
Right.
And if you're like, how does this pertain to neurodivergency? Think about it this is how you be a business owner as a neurodivergent. Bam. Fits into the theme of the podcast.
Well, mindset is just a huge thing in general. I mean, I've had to learn how to change my mindset over you're, I mean, and like the thing is since this podcast came out, and since just even recently, the past couple of weeks, even when a problem has come up that I don't know, I'm like, I wonder. Now I either ask or I look it up on Google. I mean, like I almost immediately, I'm like, and then I look it up, or I ask, or I don't sit and wonder anymore. I look it up. I mean, and I, before I would like sit and I wonder, and I mean, at the beginning, I would just be like, but like, because in season 1, I didn't deal with anything. But then when I started digging with my bipolar, and I started like really, really working on myself, and I really realized when you start to deal with all your stuff, you really get things figured out, and you fix things a lot quicker. And I think that's why recently I just started figuring out that the quicker you get an answer, the quicker you start fixing things, the quicker, it might be hard, but the quicker you start taking care of things, it gets fixed, and it's easier.
And once you realize that there really isn't anything you can't fix,
right? Even if you need help,
the world becomes a lot easier for you because now the things that frustrate you, they don't frustrate you anymore. I mean, they still frustrate you because you have to find a solution, but in your brain,
you at least have an answer.
You know that there is a solution,
right?
And I mean, if I would have known about this on the apps and tips episode, I would have put this on there. But I recently learned about this, and like you're said, you're constantly looking for answers. Well, somebody showed me this weekend. Google, if you go on your phone in your text messages, Google has integrated Gemini into it.
Oh, I think I saw that. But
yeah, you've probably seen it, but just never really thought. Gemini is their AI bot.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of cool because you can just go in and chat with Gemini, and it'll answer all your questions.
Oh, okay.
So I would recommend giving that a try. It depends on if you're one of those people that is, AI is evil and doesn't give you good answers or whatever, then don't do that. But
right.
But if you look at AI reasonably, you can tell that. I mean, if you're going to go and ask a human being a question and get an answer, AI probably has the same amount of possibility of getting it right as the person that you're asking the question.
It all depends on what human you're asking. So
right. So for anybody out there that's wondering, there is a large amount of misinformation that flows around the world because as humans, we just understand things the way we understand them within the scope of our knowledge.
Yes, I mean,
and so we're wrong about a lot of things.
Right. I mean, I'm sure we've all grown up to the age of whatever with misinformation because our aunt and uncle and whatever told us the wrong thing. So, I mean, we're taking the same gamble.
I can't remember what the podcast I listened to, but they talked about how people actually literally have these blocks in their brain. That they don't realize they have them because the block prevents them from knowing. It's just that when somebody says something about this, you just immediately dismiss it because you have this block that tells you that thing is bad.
Right. And I think it is really interesting how people have, and I think people definitely have a block towards things like AI and technology.
Right. And a lot of these blocks, like if you have a block, the only person that can tell you have a block is somebody else because you just can't see it. You don't even realize you have that block. And then, but the problem is that when you have these blocks, a lot of times you're the only person that can break down that block.
Oh, absolutely.
Which makes it extremely difficult to break it down because somebody has to tell you, hey, you have the block. You have to believe them that you have the block because you don't believe you have the block. And then once you realize you have the block, now you have to break it down.
Isn't that amazing?
How hard is it to break down something where the minute you think about this thing, everything tells you in your brain that it's wrong.
Right.
And you have to stop and you have to really look at it analytically and say, what I'm feeling correct?
Right. And that's
and
where
a lot of times you'll realize, shit, what I'm feeling is not correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely not.
It's irrational.
It's completely irrational, right?
Yeah.
Like you're feeling like this big tension that, oh my God, this is so risky. I can't do this thing.
Right. Well,
but then when you look at it sensibly, you're like, wait a minute, there's no risk to this.
Well, and that's where I've said there's certain things that I've learned over the years that why I do certain things, certain routines, certain whatever, I know I do irrational, weird things, but I can't stop doing them. And maybe I can slowly learn how. If I, like last night you came home and you're like, I know that I want to change this. I've learned, but I need your help. And maybe I just need to say, Eric, can you help me with things that I'm realizing? But but yeah, some things are just really weird that we all have these really weird things. And
I mean, so since you brought it up last night, what we talked about was that I have a block where I can only go so far spiritually because like every instinct in my body tells me that spiritual stuff is bullcrap.
And I'm sure that you're not the only one who feels that.
Absolutely not the only one that feels that. In fact, there's a large amount of people that feel that way.
But you at least want to move past.
And it's not that I'm saying that
there's something
I
in your
believe
head.
in all this stuff, but what I am curious about is that if I get past that block, what will it look like to me?
Right.
And that fascinates me, so I want to get past that block. And it was interesting because I even said to you last night when we started talking about this that I didn't think you could break this block down for me or I didn't even know if you could help me break this block down because you never had that block.
Right.
Like spirituality was a thing that you could just embrace. So, but we sat and we talked about it for 10 minutes and came to this conclusion. And I honestly think that you've helped me. I mean, nothing happens overnight. Like the solution you gave me is not something that's going to be, I do it once and I'm fixed. But I think you gave me a guideline to follow.
Right. And you may be able to take some steps.
That will help me beat this block and see what's on the other side.
We'll see. And then I hit a block a little further down the road that I want to try something and we'll see. So, we're going to both work on our own little things.
Right. And that's what life is it's a never ending battle to fix.
Right. I mean, hey, it's like summer road work. And you're gonna hit little roadwork blocks, and you're just gonna have to say, "Well, I'm gonna hit the next turn." We
should spin because we've gone on this huge tangent that
as
is
we
off
do.
the complete topic of the podcast. But I'm gonna bring it right back and say, and you as the podcast listener get to listen to us go through all of these different little things that we do to try and break down these walls and grow as people. So
it is true. And I think that can help you guys too, because whether you guys have these same blocks or not, you can say, okay, so this might not be the block that I have, but how can I use this in my life?
Right.
Because I was kind of doing that with Eric last night. I'm like, look, this might not be the same block that I have. However, I can use this.
And I think it all comes back again to mindset, where if you have a voice in your head that's saying these things, even though we're not telling you how to fix anything, it gets your mind focused in a way.
Right.
Where you can at least look at it like we talked about in the first season. You faced all of these things head on, and it made you so much stronger with that.
Right.
Well, psychologically, we're kind of doing the same thing with this podcast because maybe you'll hear about these blocks. You'll realize a block you have, and now that puts your attention on that block to see if you can break through that block.
Right.
And important to add that we all have these blocks, and some of these blocks are a good thing. Like the example I used last night was most people have a block about killing people. You don't have to analytically
Yes.
look and decide whether it's right to kill somebody or not. You just know that's a good block.
Right.
Let's
And,
keep that one.
there.
there.
And when you come up to like an edge of a cliff or something, it's probably good to have the block to be like,
don't try to
hold
break
up.
down the block where you're comfortable with jumping off of a 40-foot cliff.
Right.
Because unless there's water at the bottom, and even if there is water,
Even if there is, it's still a good thing to at least stop and say, should I or shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Because maybe you do want to jump, but it's still good to stop and analyze if you want to jump or not.
So, realize that some of these blocks are good things, but there are blocks that everybody has that there's no reason for you to have them.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing nothing but preventing you from experiencing something.
Mm-hmm.
Something that could potentially be positive. Maybe it's not the right thing for you, but a lot of these blocks come from like your parents. Things
Right.
that happen to your parents, and then your parents instill it upon you. So it's like you don't even have the decision of whether this is right for you or not, because it's just always there.
And I think that is a big thing. Is lately I've been really working through a lot of like childhood things. And when I say that, I'm not just saying like, oh man, I have a lot of stuff that's been passed down. My parents did a wonder on me, and I'm not even saying that. My parents did a great job and all that stuff. I'm just working on a lot of stuff that maybe I don't need from wherever. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just working on stuff like, hey, this is not a belief that I need. This is passed down from, everywhere that I don't necessarily, this is not my belief kind of thing. So I think we all can really just sit and examine and say, is this something that I believe, or is this something that was passed down generationally?
Right. And just because it was passed down generationally, whatever that word is, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a good block.
Right.
But it is a block that you have to look at and decide, is this right for me, or do I want to see what's on the other side of this?
Absolutely.
Because guess what? The more blocks you break down, more of these barriers you break down, the bigger the world becomes to you. Mm-hmm. And if you're like me and just a really curious person,
right,
a bigger world is way more interesting.
Right. I love being curious
than the limited world that these blocks have created for you.
Yes.
So
I think it's just a really good thing. I love being curious, and I think that's really, really a great thing that me and Eric have really done for each other. We've just kind of bounced off the whole curiosity thing for each other, and we've really opened up this world, and we've taught each other like, hey, let's just be curious with each other. And that's where I've kind of said like, is this the way I think? And that's why I've really been questioning a lot of things. And it is okay to question things, just because throughout the years, this is the one way that you've thought, maybe this isn't how you think anymore. And it is okay. It's definitely okay. And yeah, so throughout this podcast, really, I've so seen myself grow and change. And I think we really want to encourage all of our listeners to just listen to this and, kind of put it to yourself and say, how does this work with your life? Just because this is how we put it towards our life, it's not going to fit, not a one size fits all. We always say kind of we're snowflakes, all that kind of stuff. So how does it fit towards you? And if you have a question, we're not psychiatrists, psychologists, anything like that. We're not professionals, but ask us. If we don't know, we might be able to ask somebody, but ask us. We might be able to answer as best as we can. If you have anything, obviously, to contribute, write us. We are so open. Mm-hmm.
And we're even open to, if you're struggling with something, to have you on the podcast to talk about it, because
we love people.
You don't have to do that, because I know some people are just dreaded by the idea of ever being on a podcast. But
yes,
I promise you, I do this quite a bit. It's not that scary.
It's not scary. When we had Katie and Michelle on, they were nervous, and by the second half, they were like, "Oh, it's not scary at all." So, I mean, your faces don't have to be shown, which is great. Half the time I do this in my pajamas. Yeah. So
and I will just say that like the whole objective to this, like I think that a pleasant byproduct of this podcast was the transformations that we have gone through.
Yeah, I mean, again, we did not plan on this. We just wanted to get the word out there and everything. And
we just wanted to have a podcast, but I mean, this podcast has played a critical piece in probably one of the largest transformations of my life, and I would assume. I mean, I would argue that transformation is even bigger for you.
Oh, yeah. Completely. So, I mean, yeah, but I look at you half the time and I'm just like, yeah, you really transformed too. And it's just, yeah, you just, I really can't say enough for how it's helped both of us. Yeah. And it is just really enjoyable to do this one.
Yeah. And it's just, we're just really, really hopeful that out there, all of the listeners are at least getting a touch of that transformation as well. Hopefully you're going through as dramatic of a transformation as we are. If you're not, I would highly encourage you to just make this podcast.
Yeah.
Not hard.
Well, and yeah, we always say just have some kind of a journal, whether it's written, audio. You don't have to have anybody listen to it. Just have an audio journal. Right. It's great. Seriously.
Absolutely. And I do some journaling, but I also kind of forgive myself for not doing as much.
Me too, because I know sometimes I forget.
I have
this.
We have a podcast. It's like it's all there, man. It's all journaled there into the podcast, pretty much. So
I know. Yeah. So do you have anything else that you want to add to this? Because I think it's getting close to wrap up time, so we can go meet our new friend.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I just want to encourage everybody, to keep growing, keep coming back for this podcast, and hopefully.
Yes, I'm just so excited for a new season. I really am. I think there's going to be some really cool things. I think we're going to try to add on some new spiritual things for this season. Like I said, we're hoping to get a sound healer, whether, we got to see how the meeting goes. But yeah, I think there's going to be, it is going to reflect really the way that we're kind of changing. So yeah, I think there's going to be some cool things.
Yeah. So definitely stay tuned. And we do appreciate everybody's support through this, and hopefully you continue to transform as much as we do.
Yeah. So, thank you guys for your continued support.
And we'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.